He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. But today, it's Saints Friday. We're getting back on track after being off during the holidays. We're back on track today with Jeff Duncan from The Athletic. He's covered the Saints longer than anyone else on earth. And he's my friend and your friend, and he's here every single Friday. And let's hope that you're here every Friday until the Super Bowl, Jeff, because being here today means the Saints made it to the playoffs, which we expected, but still, here we are.
Yeah, it's everything up to this point has been basically building to get to this run. I mean, this team has kind of managed the whole season, Ricky, to get to this point, and I think it's going to be a little different this year. I don't want to get everybody's expectations or hope up, but I just get a feeling being around the team, they're locked and loaded. I don't see them having a short run like what happened a year ago. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Well, we're going to talk about that today. But before we get too far, you wrote a piece about Steve Gleason this week. And for those who don't remember or don't know, Jeff Duncan wrote the definitive book on the Payton and Brees era, the men who built the greatest offense in NFL history. And Steve Gleason wrote the foreword. So two things I want to talk about. Actually three things. Latest on your book. Talk to us a little bit about Steve Gleason and your experience this week. And then we have a book signing coming up at the Island View. We want to let people know about that. So why don't we start? How's the book doing, and what's the latest there?
It's doing tremendous right now. We could not be happier with sales. A lot of interest. It's helped that the Saints are winning, obviously, and we don't know what's going to happen with Drew Brees, but all signs point to him retiring after this season. So the book would be the last real definitive account of his career. So I think there's been a lot of interest, certainly in capturing what's made him such a special player, the greatest player in the history of the Saints. And look, he's playing really well right now. I mean, I think he's getting kind of overlooked how well he's playing. And I just think there's a lot on the line for the Saints. And hopefully some of the things we talk about in the book will come to light for the Saints in the playoffs because this offense certainly has the potential to get back on track with all the weapons coming back and leading this team maybe back to the Super Bowl.
Well, it's going to be fun to get caught up on all those things. I've shared before when you and I talked about when we initially discussed your book, I actually shared some of the foreword that was written by Steve Gleason. And it's a passionate account of what Drew Brees, Sean Payton, and this city means to him. And the way he said it, the way he expressed himself, it's amazing that a guy who's gone through the challenges that he has gone through with Lou Gehrig's disease would have such a positive view toward life in the way that he has it. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, he's an extraordinary person, as you know, and I think most people are familiar with his story. What was nice to be able to do, Ricky, on this story that we did this week, because now I'm at The Athletic, we have a global platform and certainly a national platform, over 1 million subscribers. So a lot of people were introduced to the Steve Gleason story, introduced to ALS for the first time. And we saw that in the comment stream at the bottom of the story, people saying they'd never heard about Steve Gleason before. Whereas the old days at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, I'd written about him so many times, certainly here in New Orleans, everyone's familiar with Steve for the most part. So it was nice to be able to tell that story. And the reason we did it, of course, Tuesday was the 10-year anniversary of his diagnosis. And most people that are diagnosed with this horrible disease have about a 2 to 5 year period to live. It's just such a dreadful progression of losing your motor skills. The disease attracts the motor neurons, the nerves that control your muscles, and gradually you lose the ability to function. You can't walk, you can't talk, you can't swallow, you can't breathe. And it just kind of slowly devastates your ability to live and your quality of life. And most people that get it, frankly, are older. It seems to attack people in their late 50s, 60s, and 70s. Steve was diagnosed when he was 34 years old, and he was just 2 years removed from being an NFL player. And so he had a lot to live for. So he chose a more difficult and maybe unusual path to live with this disease and to manage it. And he has the resources and the support group to do it. And so we were celebrating the 10 years that he's lived with this disease and the future, because he's going strong, Ricky. He's not, he's not slowing down any at all. He's got projects in the works. He has two beautiful young children now. Rivers is 9. Ray is 2 years old. And that keeps him going. The family and, of course, the Team Gleason Foundation and all the work they're doing to kind of change the lives of people with this horrible disease. It's really an extraordinary story. And what we did in the story, something that's never been done before, he allowed us access, myself and Ted Jackson, our former Times-Picayune, NOLA.com, Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer, into their home. And we're able to kind of document a day in the life of Steve Gleason, what he goes through every day of his life just to get up in the morning and to get prepared for the day ahead. It's about a 2-hour process. And then to go to bed at night, it's about 30 to 45 minutes. It's just extraordinary. And a lot of people, I think, would give up because it's just such a difficult life. But he doesn't. And so we were fortunate. I felt honored to be able to tell that story.
Well, I'm not surprised that you are the one who was honored to tell that story, because I remember back when I was at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune with you, you and I had many conversations about the possibility of you writing Steve Gleason's book. I mean, you've been there all along the way. You've earned his respect. The fact that he wrote the foreword to your book about Payton and Brees is just one more indication of that. But what an inspiration this guy is, man. I mean, it just shows you can overcome adversity in your life. You can still have incredible things you can accomplish in your life. I mean, what a legacy he's leaving every day in his life.
Yeah, great. That's a great way of putting it. And look, I encourage everybody to read it. I'm not saying it just as self-serving. I think it will change your perspective on life. I know Thomas Morstead, the Saints punter, is very close to the Gleasons. He always he has a phrase that he uses when he talks about Steve. He says he's a daily dose of perspective for all of us. And I really believe that's so true. When you spend time around Steve and you see the difficulties that he overcomes on a daily basis to be a good father, husband, and leader in the community, it will give you perspective and certainly change your outlook on life. And I think if people read this story, it'll be refreshing for them.
It was posted this week on The Athletic. I really encourage you to go check it out. Hey, you're also a member of the 48-member Pro Football Hall of Fame Selection Committee. And the nominees were just released, and Louisiana has a number of representatives. Update us on that.
Yeah, so we're down to the 15 finalists now, Ricky. In 2 weeks, we'll have our selection committee meeting, our annual meeting, where we decide the class of 2021, and it's got a heavy Louisiana flavor this year. Peyton Manning, New Orleans native, along with Reggie Wayne, another New Orleans native. Both, I think, have a great shot at getting into the class, along with Alan Faneca, former LSU standout, and Sam Mills, former Saints great linebacker of the Dome Patrol days. They're 4 of the 15 finalists, and we'll have to whittle it down to 5. And this year, it is going to be tough sledding, because there's some really strong first-year eligible candidates. In addition to Peyton Manning, you have Charles Woodson, you have Calvin Johnson, and Jared Allen. And I think all 4 of them have really strong resumes. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets into the Hall of Fame this year.
I hear some Jets in the background this morning.
Yeah, we're close to the training center here in downtown New Orleans, and they're obviously working this morning doing some training because the naval base isn't far from here in Belle Chase.
Hey, and one last thing. You have a book signing coming up here in coastal Mississippi at the Island View Casino. Tell me about that.
Yeah, excited about it. If you're in the area, love to see people come out and visit. If you have a copy of the book, we're going to be signing the book. It's at Island View Casino Saturday night, 6 p.m. I'll be there indefinitely as long as everybody wants to be there. And we're going to be signing copies of Payton and Brees, also just talking Saints. So even if you're not interested in the book, just come on out. You want to talk Saints, it'll be a really good time. I'm really looking forward to get over in the Biloxi Gulfport area.
Well, I was initially disappointed that we didn't do this book signing during the regular season, but I said if they get into the playoffs, it's going to work out perfect in terms of time. And so that's the way it worked out. So congratulations. I know that the people of Coastal Mississippi look forward to seeing you here. Why don't we do this? We're gonna take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we're gonna start to break down the game that we just had and the way the Saints use glue to keep this team together. Next man up. They have just shown it time and time again. Next man up. That they can make this happen. And as you pointed out, Drew Brees had a good game. I mean, he's, in spite of the fact that he's still in some pain when he's playing pretty good ball right now. And we got some great players coming back. So we're going to start to break it all down. We'll see you right after this break with Jeff Duncan.
Broadcasting safe and sound from the Coastal Mississippi studios, this is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk 103.1.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90 Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors here. The show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to frequently touch surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse at telesouth.com. That's JESSE at telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We're having Saints Friday with our friend Jeff Duncan. He's a just a talented writer. He's someone who has covered the Saints longer than anyone else on earth. He works for The Athletic, and he's written a definitive book on the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to shift gears. Let's talk about the Panthers game. There are so many headlines from the Panthers game. Every phase of the game, there's something to talk about. The Saints used glue in the biggest way possible, given the fact that their running back core was literally decimated by the COVID protocol. And man, they didn't miss a lick, Jeff. So what stands out the most for you? Let's start to break it all down.
Well, I think just what you said, Ricky, the ability of Sean Payton and the offensive coaching staff and the defensive staff to some degree, their ability to put together a successful game plan with the pieces that they had at hand. I mean, they were really down a lot of key players. Obviously, the entire running back room was eliminated by the COVID situation with Alvin Kamara, and that was very disappointing. We should talk about that. And then they were already down most of their top receivers, Mike Thomas, Traquan Smith, Deontay Harris did not play. And yet Sean Payton is able to put together a successful plan along with Drew Brees, who's playing better and better. And as long as that offensive line stays intact, Ricky, I mean, that's the engine, and the engine keeps rolling. And this team's able to put together a game plan that can be successful against a team at least like Carolina. And, the defense obviously was down some key members of the secondary. But the good news is on all this is that most of these players are going to be back this week, and the Saints should be close to full strength for the playoffs.
Well, you and I have talked about this every time we're together, that the success of this team this year has been in the trenches, both on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive line this past game, man, they just played a hell of a game. And I mean, we got a bunch of interceptions. I mean, it started out where I found myself saying, why can't the defensive backs catch the ball? Right off the bat, I felt that way because they tend to get them in their hands and lose them. But then they ended up having a great game. But it was the defensive line that kind of set the tone for those interceptions, isn't it?
Well, yeah, early on they were really getting after Carolina up front, and Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, had to make some adjustments and started getting the ball out of Teddy Bridgewater's hands, calling quick strike plays, and the Saints adjusted to that. And it was kind of a chess match there for a while. And then once they got built that lead, it really kind of forced Carolina to be one-dimensional, and the Saints didn't have to honor the run at all. And they just got after him and forced, I think, a lot of bad throws. I mean, I don't think Bridgewater played very well in that game. He made some really bad decisions, I thought, forcing the ball into coverage, unlike him, to be honest with you. And the Saints with 5 interceptions, Ricky, that's the most they've had in a game since 1991. That's the Dome Patrol days. That was a big performance by them. And they were shorthanded. They were missing Marcus Williams and DJ Swearinger and CJ Gardner-Johnson and Patrick Robinson. And yet they still had such a spectacular game. And that's obviously bodes well for the playoffs.
It really does bode well for the playoffs. You talked about this before, but the Saints struggled the first couple of games. And then they made an adjustment in the defense with their safeties and how they played. Remind our listeners what that adjustment was, because it has really been sort of the hallmark of the Saints defense since they made that adjustment.
Yeah, early on this year, they were playing Malcolm Jenkins in a similar role to what he was doing in Philadelphia, up closer to the line of scrimmage, using him like almost an extra linebacker, a joker kind of position. And they were playing a single high safety a lot with Marcus Williams, who has great range and gets sideline to sideline. And they were giving up a lot of big plays deep. And since then, since the bye week, they basically abandoned that strategy. They still morph into it a little bit. They'll change things up. They're very multiple. But more than likely, they're going to be in a 2 deep safety look with Malcolm Jenkins playing back deep alongside Marcus Williams and keeping everything in front of them. Those 2 safeties back deep really force teams to kind of move the ball underneath with short and intermediate passes. And the Saints are so good up front, they can rush just 4 guys and get pressure on the opposing quarterback, and that's allowing them to play, 7 players in coverage. They're just very difficult right now to consistently move the ball again. because of this defensive change. And it's eliminated all those big gash plays, those chunk plays. And they've also cut down on the turnovers as well by having two safeties back there. So it's really been a smart move, and I think they've found the formula for success.
It's been fun to watch. I mean, you just have, as just an observer, it's fun to watch a team that feels to have some defensive swagger. I mean, you just feel it, man. You feel there may be a play every now and then it gets past them, but you can tell they're very frustrated when that happens because they expect no big plays to get past them. And I mean, they shut Panthers down, man. I mean, it was it was hard. And Panthers are not a bad team. You know that, Jeff, going into the game. I mean, they could have been a dangerous team. But, man, we just shut them down.
Yeah, I think offensively especially, they've got some weapons. But the Saints are just, I think, playing with a lot of confidence right now. And look, it helped getting Trey Hendrickson back and Malcolm Brown back in the middle of that defensive line. He shuts down the run. He's a very key, underrated player. So now their defensive line is fortified. They should be getting back most of the key players in the secondary this week. Patrick Robinson will definitely be back to play the nickelback position if C.J. Gardner-Johnson can't go, but we're expecting him back as well. So I really think this team is really, the trajectory right now could not be better going into the playoffs. Health-wise, I know they lost Quan Alexander, but Alex Anzalone played almost the whole game last week, played very well. They're going to be fine there. And they're probably the healthiest team in the entire playoffs. And it's very rare to be this healthy this late in the year.
You mentioned, let's come to the offensive side. Of course, we got the news going into the game with the Panthers that Alvin Kamara was going to be out. And then we learned shortly after that that basically all of the running backs were going to be out. You said something about that disappointed you. What was that?
Well, Alvin Kamara hasn't been wearing his tracer. And that was really the issue. The NFL gives all the players and coaches a tracer that they have to wear. They're supposed to wear. And that allows them to do the contact tracing when somebody tests positive. And because he wasn't wearing the tracer, which he's been told multiple times by people I've talked to in the building, because he wasn't wearing that, that put everyone around him in the running back room in jeopardy. And that's why they all had to sit out the game. If you were just going to war without Alvin Kamara, obviously he's a great player, but you still would have Latavius Murray. You still would have, the fullback, Mike Burton. So by him not wearing that tracer, that decision cost the Saints the entire running back group, and Joel Thomas, the running backs coach who was in the meetings. That decision is what was disappointing.
Wow. Yeah, well, I'm surprised that he got by without wearing it, because I remember in the beginning when you talked about, even the media wearing these tracers, if they found you too close to somebody else, that you would get pinged pretty quickly. It was really, it's a hell of a system. And when you think about 17 weeks, the NFL didn't have to cancel a game, and all that went around that in terms of how they did their COVID protocol. It's a really incredible outcome, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Saints have done a great job with it. They've managed it probably as well or better than any team in the league. They really only had two players all year, Teron Armstead and Emmanuel Sanders, miss games up until week 17, miss games because of testing positive or being infected. And they have a plan in place, Ricky. I haven't written about this yet, but the players, at one time they wanted to try and put together another bubble for the playoffs and have the players all in a team hotel. That doesn't sound like it's going to happen, but what they're doing internally is having the players sign like this non-binding agreement with all the other players that they will meet like 10 different protocols. In other words, players, kids are not going to be going to school. They're going to be doing only virtual classroom sessions. No one's going out to eat, these kind of things. And obviously it's, not legally enforceable, but it's a commitment to your teammates and your coaches during this playoff run. We're not going to do these things. We're going to lock it down in our own little mini bubble at our homes and not jeopardize, the team's chances of winning in the playoffs.
Gosh, it's so important. I can't say how important that is, and hopefully they can pull it off, because as you pointed out, other than this issue with the tracering Alvin Kamara, the team has really performed really well. And what's been most interesting is that they haven't had these big in-team spreads. Even if somebody gets it, whatever they're doing to do contact tracing and all of that, they've managed that pretty well. Okay, so the running backs are out. Next man up. We still got over 100 yards rushing. Unbelievable. When we come back after this break, Jeff, let's talk about how effective next man up has been, especially this past week. It's really an incredible performance, not just in the running backs, but also the defensive backs. Man, it was just great to watch these players step into these roles and really make a difference. I mean, make key plays that helped us win that game. And it bodes well for the kind of depth of this team and the leadership of this team. When we come back with Jeff Duncan from The Athletic, we'll continue our conversation.
Be sure to go by this station's website and check out the half-off deals. Audubon Zoo tickets for just $15. That's half price. $30 zoo tickets for just $15. Again, go to this station's website or Facebook. Look for the half-off deals logo to purchase yours now.
Heart attacks and strokes don't stay home. So don't avoid the ER out of anxiety. Don't die of doubt. If you have an emergency, call 911. When seconds count, the hospital is the safest place to be.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer-songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and, all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
There's a place to share gossip about the office party fun, and a place to share the story you tell everyone. There's a place to share a laugh about when things went wrong, and a place to share the video of you dancing to your song. There's a place to share spare change, lunch, and your time. But we could all be better at sharing how we're feeling inside. 76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have 2 risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy, beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to touch frequently touched surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Whether you're a Rebel, a Bulldog, a Golden Eagle, or just a sports fan, SuperTalk Mississippi has got a podcast for you. For you. Sports Talk Mississippi, The Rebel Report, Thunder and Lightning, the SuperTalk Eagle Hour, and The Borky Show are all now available for you. And it's all free. Get them all on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for SuperTalk on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fm.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors here, the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Jeff Duncan with us. It's Saints Friday here on Coast View. Jeff has covered the Saints longer than anyone else on earth. He is a reporter and a columnist for The Athletic, and a really good friend of mine in the show. So we really appreciate you being with us, Jeff. Hey, we're going to talk about Next Man Up in just a second. But what I want to focus on for a second is some information you got just before you came on the show. First of all, we're only going to have 3,700 fans. That's really, really disappointing. I think the mayor is caught between a rock and a hard place. You know, can't make an exception. You can talk about that. But you also heard Sean Payton say something that really got your attention. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere, Ricky. I asked him about, if he felt there was a home field advantage in the playoffs and how do you create one with such a small crowd? And he went on a long answer, and then he admitted that he's actually looked into or brought up internally the idea of having 50,000 fans quarantined and scientifically tested safe for home games. And I didn't have the time to follow up with, are you serious, Clark? I couldn't believe this was coming out of his mouth. And I think he was semi-serious, at least to try and come up with some unique way to have a safe environment, but also a home field advantage. As we've seen all season long, most teams are not having fans or limited crowd sizes because of the pandemic. And Sean Payton, the wheels are always turning, Ricky. He's trying to find any edge he can get. And he thought with the passionate fan base the Saints have, he could probably get a few thousand, maybe tens of thousands of fans willing to commit to some kind of bubble-like thing where they could go to the games and create a home field advantage for these next few weeks.
Well, it'd be interesting. I don't think any other NFL team would be pleased to hear that because they may not have the relationship with their fan base the way the Saints have with their fan base. And so interesting, globally, how would you institute this in a way that would be fair? But it's hey, they said it before. It plays out. How many people are in the stands are determined by what the local situation is, not by the NFL. So if they could work out some kind of local innovation to create a home field advantage, then power to them, and it would be interesting to see if they can pull it together. Hey, listen, Next Man Up, something we've talked about the whole season, but it was really on display, both defensively and offensively in this past game. So let's give credit where credit is due. It really was a remarkable performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, and look, at the running back position, I felt like they were going to be fine. Ty Montgomery's played running back in the NFL. He's had 100-yard games. He's a smart guy. He's a Stanford grad. He came into the league as a running back and then made the transition to receiver. So I really felt like, look, as long as the offensive line is there and they're blocking the way they've been blocking, the Saints were going to be fine, and they showed. They just had to tweak the offensive game plan to certain runs that he felt more comfortable with, that the Saints staff felt he could be successful in. And that was really all they had to do. They have such, as you know, and we've talked about it before, they have such a volume of offense and they have such experience in the coaching staff. They're able to be flexible and to just basically dial up a different menu for any player to suit their skill set. And that's what they did in this game. And Drew Brees, I feel like's playing better every week. And he was able to control the clock, make the key passes to keep the chains moving. And that offensive line is just dominating right now.
Well, you don't think of Sanders from an offensive point of view. You don't think of Sanders in the framework of next man up. But man, did he deliver though. I mean, and it was great to see sort of the coach and Brees and the team sort of rally around him because of that bonus that he could get. But that was a good little sort of sub story to the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I tell you, that is a real, I think, feather in the cap of Sean Payton. It's one of the reasons why players want to play for him. When your head coach basically knows you can get this $500,000 bonus, and you've got to get a certain amount of catches to get there, and your head coach makes sure you get it, that's going to make you want to play for this guy. And those little things like that Sean Payton's attention to detail, it's a Bill Parcells type of a philosophy. Take care of your studs. And he did that for Emmanuel Sanders, and that'll go a long way for him, not only with Emmanuel Sanders, but everybody else in that locker room.
Boy, it's good to see him. It's taken, he's had to figure out the offense, and he's got it now. And then you got Michael Thomas coming back. Wow. It's Drew Brees has got to be licking his chops.
And you also saw Jared Cook have a big game as well. They're finally going to have most of their weapons available for the first time this season. So I really think there's an opportunity here for the Saints offense to go to another level.
So these young defensive backs, God bless you. God bless you. These young defensive backs, they have, again, next man up. It was just great to see them come in and not just contribute, but really make plays. Talk about that.
What about like Austin Carr getting a touchdown, and some of these role players that the Saints have been able to dial up in the past. And that touchdown he scored on was one he'd scored on before. That was all play calling, all basically, Sean Payton dialing up a play. I've written about that kind of play before. It's basically taking advantage of defenses and how they see the Saints blocking all the time, and then they slip him out in the back of the end zone off of play action. Brilliant play design, play execution. And it's just a testament to the depth and also the confidence that the Saints have in these guys, and Drew Brees has to call their number in critical situations, not making excuses. It's one of my favorite things about the leadership of Sean Payton and Drew Brees. They don't use injuries and attrition and COVID, missing players from that as an excuse. They know that's like a crutch that you can lean on. He refuses to let his players use it as an excuse or his coaching staff. And I think that, is a really positive thing in the locker room. It breeds confidence.
Hey, before we move too far away from the Panthers game, I love the Panthers quarterback. I mean, how can you not love this guy after the legacy he left in New Orleans? But when he went down, knowing the issues with his knees, I thought, oh my gosh, maybe he's hurt his knee. It turns out it was his ankle. But man, you saw the Saints players they care about that guy. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, Teddy Bridgewater is just, if you've been around him, he's a hard guy to not like. What his story, what he went through to get back to the NFL, and, it was not an easy path for him. A lot of people probably counted him out. And so for him to kind of resurrect his career and play so well this year, last year, I think Saints fans will always remember him coming in for Drew Brees and leading them to 5 straight wins, getting them back in the playoffs. And he's going to be their starting quarterback again next year. I know they're probably in the quarterback market, but I think he's going to end up being the starter. And if they bring somebody in, even if they draft somebody high, I think he'll be the starter and groom behind him. And here's another thing we haven't mentioned today, but don't be surprised if Jeff Ireland ends up becoming the general manager of the Carolina Panthers, kind of continuing this New Orleans exodus over to Carolina. He'd be a big loss for the Saints. He's been the key architect of all their successful drafts. And the Carolina Panthers, I'm told, have targeted him, and he's the leader in the clubhouse for that position. And it would be a big loss for the Saints, but he would do very well over there at Carolina.
I know they want him to do well, and you and I have talked about this before. It's hard to, if you help people get what they want out of life, you'll get what you want out of life. And that's how the Saints are looking at this. They want to keep him, but they know that he's got tremendous potential in the league. But it was it'd be very scary for him to go to somewhere like Carolina, where we're going to have to play him twice, and we're going to be competing with him and his great mind, his great approach to the draft. That's a little scary, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you look at it from just a big picture perspective, Ricky, when you build teams and organizations, whatever industry you're in, you've got big time ownership there. And David Tepper, he's one of the richest men in the country, a big hedge fund guy, somebody that came to the Panthers from the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, was a part owner there. So he learned the culture of Pittsburgh, one of the league's most successful franchises. And now he's in Carolina running the show there. He's got ultimate resources, and he's got a great young coach in Matt Rule. If they can retain Joe Brady as offensive coordinator, now Joe Brady is going to be interviewing for head coaching positions. That might be hard to do, but there's a lot of good things in place there. So if you're a Jeff Ireland, as happy as you are in New Orleans, and he is very happy here, he's turned down offers to be GMs at other places in the past. This is one you might look long and hard at because of all the things that are in place to be successful.
Pretty amazing stuff. Hey, in the next segment, we're going to talk about the game ahead, but we got 1 minute left in this segment. Demario Davis won the Bart Star Award. That didn't surprise you at all, did it?
No, great man, great leader, extremely well respected in the locker room, also respected by all the coaching staff with the Saints. He's just what a great signing. Now that's a tribute to Terry Fontenot and the pro personnel people finding a guy like Demario Davis. I don't know how you let a guy like that get out of the building, but he's flourished here in New Orleans and is another great veteran leader on this team, and one of the reasons why I think they've got a great shot to make a deep playoff run.
Jeff Duncan from The Athletic covered the Saints longer than anyone else on earth, here with us every Friday on Coast Vue on Saints Friday. We'll have a conversation coming up after this break about what about the Chicago Bears? We played them before. It was a good game. We're gonna talk more about what that outcome is going to look like.
Super Talk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam, as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. Norbert, Elvis,
And I want to tell you about Presley. He had two different voices. He would sit and talk to me in a very calm, low voice. And we were at Stack's one night, and we were having lunch. We always had lunch at midnight because he was nocturnal. We sat there and we have our sandwiches, and at 1 o'clock, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Pot, come on, it's time for me to go be open." And he stood up, and a much deeper voice, he put on his macho voice. "Hey, fellas, it's 1 o'clock. Let's get cracking, okay?"
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, Amazon Alexa, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
It's me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Everyone knows the only thing better than pizza is free pizza, and right now, buy a $10 gift certificate to CiCi's Pizza for only $5. It's like buying a pizza and getting a pizza for free. Go to our station's website or Facebook. Look for the Half Off Deals logo to purchase this amazing deal right now.
We give HPV vaccine to children at 11 or 12 years of age. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and I've given the vaccine to all of them.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90 Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Jeff Duncan with us from The Athletic, and we've been talking about, we've covered the waterfront as it relates to the Saints, but now we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about the upcoming game, this game that's going to play midday on Sunday, and it's the first of, I hope, many games. Jeff, you believe it could be a long run into the playoffs. Talk about why you think that, and then let's talk specifically about the Bears game.
Well, I think the early exit last year still lingers with this team mentally. I think they were very disappointed and embarrassed, frankly, by the way they played against Minnesota. And I think they've thought about that game ever since, they walked off the field at the Superdome. They were 9-point favorites in that game, Ricky, and here they are again, 9.5-point favorites. They're the largest favorite in the entire wild card round. And I don't think they're going to overlook Chicago because of the lesson they learned last year in Minnesota. I don't think they really were focused on that game, and they did not play well. And I think they got outcoached in that game. I think Dennis Allen and Sean Payton would tell you their game plans were not up to snuff. So I don't think there's going to be a lack of focus on this team. They know what's at stake. All the chips are on the table. They've worked all year for this point. They kind of managed the season like an NBA team, like the Lakers did last year, just to get to the playoffs. Now we're going to see them take it up a notch. I really believe that. And they're healthy. And I just think they're too talented for Chicago to kind of keep pace with.
It was interesting going back and looking at the highlights for the Green Bay game, the Green Bay and Bears game, which happened this week. All of us were pulling for the Bears because we wanted that number 1 seed, but the game slowly sort of got out of control, and Chicago didn't have a chance of winning as they got toward the end of that game. But it was a lot more of what we saw from Green Bay, that first game of the Saints, before we made the defensive change that we made. This is a different defense we have today than when we played Green Bay before, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. What you saw happen to the Bears in that game, I think, is what's going to happen to them against the Saints. They're just they're playing better, but they're just not good enough. And offensively, I think they're going to struggle to keep pace with the Saints, even though they've got talent on defense. As long as the Saints control the clock and don't turn it over, don't give the Bears anything easy, I just think they're going to have trouble having enough offensive firepower to move the ball consistently and then score touchdowns. I think they're going to end up kicking a lot of field goals, and that's not going to work against the Saints offense that's playing much better right now. You know, the Saints have won 6 games in a row against the Bears dating back to 2011. They've kind of had their number. And while some of the games have been close, I don't think this one will. I think in the end, the Saints pull away in the second half and kind of win this one comfortably.
Okay, so the Saints win. Who do you think the next opponent's going to be?
I think it could be anybody. I'm not dodging the question. I think it could be wide open. I really believe the Saints and the Packers are the 2 best teams by far in the NFC. And I think it's kind of a top-heavy conference this year. And once you get past those 2 teams, it wouldn't shock me at all to see the Rams upset Seattle, even though they don't have Jared Goff. That's going to be tough. Wouldn't surprise me to see the Rams win that game. I think Tampa Bay is going to struggle against that really good Washington defense. I think Washington's front 4 can give the Bucs trouble up front and really make life difficult for Tom Brady. I think Tampa Bay will win that game, but I don't think it's going to be easy at all. And so I think the Saints, everyone was caught up in getting the number 1 seed, and I get it. You would love to have home field advantage, but I don't think it's a sure bet that Green Bay wins their game next weekend, no matter who they play. I think they could be upset. Who knows? We could end up seeing the Saints hosting the NFC Championship game if they get to that point. So I think a lot could happen here. And I think the AFC is going to be wide open because that's really competitive on that side.
Yeah, I mean, they are. And as we saw in our game against Kansas City, they get to the big game. And, man, wouldn't it be great if we could get there? We have proven that we can stand toe-to-toe with them. And, with our players back and healthy, hope to God they get through the next couple of games healthy. Man, what it would be. It would be so cool to end this pandemic with a run to win the Super Bowl. Wouldn't that just be incredible?
Well, I think Saints fans should really feel optimistic because, we've talked to some of the players the last week or so, and I think everybody would agree the Saints really haven't played their best game yet. I mean, they have not had a chance to have their whole offensive and defensive lineup on the field for a long time. And so they really could be peaking at the right time. And I feel like their best game's in front of them. And they're so talented. And I think now mentally, they're so focused and concentrating on trying to at least get back to the big game. They really need to do this. I'm writing a column this week for The Athletic about the legacies of Sean Payton and Drew Brees and how they're kind of on the line here in this postseason. While they don't owe anything to anybody in New Orleans, I think everybody reveres them locally. They'll probably have statues one day. Nationally, from a broader perspective, their place in the history of the game is going to be on the line, and they have to get at least back to the Super Bowl again, I think, for the resumes.
Jeff Duncan, thank you for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. I love these conversations. I know our listeners do too. And they can see you and meet you and have you sign their book, Payton and Brees, at the Island View Casino this Saturday at 6:00, right, Jeff?
Correct.
This Saturday at 6:00, the day before the playoff game. So this is a great opportunity to meet the one guy who's covered the Saints longer than anyone else on earth. He's the ultimate insider. You'll enjoy the book too. By the way, the book is expertly written, well structured. But anyway, thank you very much, Jeff, and we'll see you next week. I hope.
Thank you, Ricky.
Hey, we'll see you next week, no matter what happens, because we got to do a debriefing on the season.
I look forward to it.
So we'll see you next week for sure. Take care, buddy.
See you, bud.